In the far reaches of the galaxy, humanity's warships have become a subject of both fear and fascination for alien civilizations. The story of why even the most powerful aliens stay clear of human warship scans begins in the early stages of human expansion into space. As humanity discovered faster-than-light travel and began to explore neighboring star systems, they encountered a variety of alien species, each with their own advanced technologies and unique cultures. Initially, many of these alien races underestimated humanity, seeing them as just another species to be dealt with in the grand scope of the cosmos. However, what these alien civilizations didn't realize was that humanity's warships were not just advanced in terms of firepower, but in terms of unique, almost unknowable technological innovation. The key to this technological superiority lay in the ship scans, which were far more than just instruments for gathering data. They were capable of probing deep into space, extending far beyond what any other species had ever thought possible. The scans were not just passive. They were active tools of both detection and influence, a reflection of humanity's relentless drive to understand and conquer their environment. As humanity continued to expand its presence in the galaxy, their warships became increasingly feared. The scans they sent out weren't just passive pulses of data. They could find the smallest anomaly, detect hidden fleets, or even identify the true nature of alien technology, down to the very principles that underpin them. This was more than just warfare. It was a form of cosmic reconnaissance that allowed human warships to get ahead of their enemies before the first shot was fired. Alien species, who were once considered far superior in technology, found themselves baffled and increasingly intimidated by the ability of these human ships to see more than they ever could. One of the primary reasons for this fear was the nature of human ingenuity. Whereas other alien civilizations relied on vast networks of interconnected technologies, humanity's warships had a more personal, adaptable form of intelligence. These ships seemed to learn and evolve on the fly, absorbing information about alien technology and adapting their scans accordingly. This dynamic and almost self-aware nature made human warships a unique threat. The scans were not just a method of gathering information. They were actively capable of modifying themselves, rerouting their energies and frequencies to tap into the weaknesses of alien defenses. The powerful alien civilizations, which had once considered their own technology to be invincible, began to take note. In fact, it was during one of the first encounters between human warships and an alien fleet that the aliens realized just how dangerous a well-tuned human scan could be. Initially, they had assumed the scans were little more than rudimentary instruments. However, when a human warship targeted an enemy fleet with a seemingly harmless scan, the aliens found that their ship's protective shields had been temporarily disabled. Worse still, the scan had pierced through the electronic layers of their vessels, revealing hidden systems and vulnerabilities that no alien species had thought possible. This incident sent shockwaves through the alien community. Many of the more advanced civilizations had learned it the hard way that humanity's warship scans were not just a tool for combat. They were a form of intelligent warfare, capable of exposing every secret an alien civilization might hold. It wasn't just about seeing things. It was about understanding them in a way that no other species could. For the first time in galactic history, aliens had to face the uncomfortable reality that their most advanced technologies might not be enough to protect them from the ingenuity of humanity's engineers. As this reputation spread across the stars, many of the most powerful alien races began to avoid human warships altogether, especially when it came to engaging in direct combat or even approaching areas where human fleets operated. The mere presence of a human warship, with its scans probing the very fabric of space and technology, was enough to send even the most powerful alien species into a state of caution. The fear wasn't just about what a human warship could do with its guns or missiles. It was about the vast intelligence they could gather from simply scanning a target, dismantling the enemy's advantage before a single shot was ever fired. This phenomenon soon became legendary, and even some of the oldest and most powerful alien races began to adopt precautionary measures when they knew human ships were in the vicinity. They would alter their strategies, avoid scanning frequencies, and make sure their most vulnerable technologies were shielded in ways that had never been considered before. What had once been a common occurrence, alien races showing curiosity toward humanity, now became a near-universal avoidance. The simple truth was that no matter how technologically advanced the aliens were, they could never fully predict or protect themselves from the human warship scans that could penetrate even the deepest secrets of their designs. Over time, This fear gave rise to stories across the galaxy of how the powerful and enigmatic human warships could cripple entire fleets without ever firing a shot, just by sending out a scan. The reputation of humanity's ships spread, creating an aura of mystery and terror that kept most species at bay. As humanity's empire grew, so too did the fear and respect they garnered, for in the vastness of space, there was one unassailable truth: even the most powerful aliens stayed clear of human warship scans. The combination of human determination, ingenuity, and their unmatched ability to gather and exploit information was something no alien species could afford to ignore, and it cemented humanity's place as a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. As humanity's influence expanded throughout the galaxy, the implications of their warship scans grew more profound. The stories of these scans, able to pierce through the most sophisticated alien technologies and expose their weaknesses, became legends in many civilizations. Alien fleets, once feared for their size and power, now found themselves having to constantly evolve, creating new defenses to shield their most secretive systems from the prying eyes of human scanners. The very act of a human warship entering a system became an event of immense caution for alien races. No longer did they see these ships as mere instruments of war. Instead, they were seen as harbingers of intelligence and analysis, capable of dismantling an entire fleet strategy before the first shot was fired. Even those species with greater military might than humans had to adapt or risk becoming vulnerable. The idea of being caught in a scan, exposed to the deep insight humanity could gather from seemingly harmless pulses of energy, struck fear into the hearts of many. In the galactic councils, where different alien species often gathered to discuss treaties, trade agreements, or potential conflicts, the mention of human warships brought an uncomfortable silence. Older, more established races, who once viewed themselves as the keepers of galactic knowledge and power, had to reconsider their positions. They had once thought their shields, their cloaking technologies, and their electronic warfare would be the perfect counter to any threat. But humanity had shown them that brute force was not always the answer, sometimes. But even as humanity continued to expand their influence, they never lost sight of their core principles. They didn't seek to dominate, but to understand. They didn't conquer by force, but through knowledge. Human warships, as powerful as they were not sent out with the intent to annihilate. Instead, they were the quiet sentinels, standing watch over the galaxy, scanning for any hint of malfeasance or hidden agendas. When diplomacy was possible, humanity sought peace. When threats were unavoidable, their warships remained calm, precise, and unyielding in their resolve. A turning point came when an entirely new threat emerged, one that neither brute force nor scanning technology could easily detect. A strange, shadowy entity known as a Whisper began to make its presence known. The Whisper wasn't a physical enemy. It was a malevolent force that spread through the very fabric of communication networks and data streams. Entire star systems were affected, their technologies corrupted, their inhabitants driven to madness as their communication systems turned against them. Human warships, with their scans, could detect technological anomalies in warfare systems, but this new enemy was different. It was a challenge to their intellectual supremacy. They couldn't simply scan for weaknesses. They had to outthink an enemy that was invisible, elusive, and dangerous in ways that had never been encountered before. This new enemy tested humanity in ways they had never been tested before. In a remarkable act of ingenuity, human scientists and military leaders turned their warship scanning technology inward, reconfiguring it to study patterns in the very communication networks that the Whisper sought to infiltrate. With the help of alien allies, many of whom had once been skeptical of humanity's methods, humanity developed new countermeasures to thwart the Whisper, turning what was once thought of as a unique galactic threat into a problem that could be understood, adapted to, and eventually neutralized. In the aftermath of the Whisper's defeat, the galaxy saw a shift in how knowledge and technology were valued. Humanity's warships, which had once been symbols of military might, were now seen as the foremost tools of enlightenment, understanding, and survival. The galactic community no longer feared humanity simply for their scans, but for their profound ability to evolve, to rise to any challenge, and to ensure the safety of the galaxy through their unparalleled intellect. And so, humanity's legacy grew. No longer just a species with powerful warships, they were a species that had rewritten the rules of warfare and diplomacy, had proven that intellect could be as potent as firepower, and had shown that in a universe filled with uncertainty and danger, the greatest strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the ability to understand. This intellectual advantage continued to expand the scope of human influence. A coalition of smaller species, once content to remain neutral in galactic politics, began to seek out humanity's partnership in the hopes of gaining access to their warship technology and scanning abilities. These smaller factions saw an opportunity not to simply rely on brute force but to understand the patterns of galactic politics and warfare, to predict outcomes before they unfolded. In this way, humanity's role in the galaxy continued to grow, not through coercion or violence, but through the power of their intellect and the unmatched ability of their warships to understand their enemies in ways that no other species could. But perhaps the most profound consequence of humanity's rise was the effect it had on the galaxy's younger civilizations, the species just beginning to emerge in the vast expanse of space. These species, seeing what humanity had achieved, began to model themselves after the example set by human warships, not to fight blindly, but to fight smartly. They learned that knowledge was a key to survival in the galaxy, that the true power lay not in dominating others through force, but in understanding the universe at a deeper level than any other species could. The story of humanity's warships, once an account of fear and respect, had evolved into one of admiration and imitation. Other civilizations, watching humanity's rise, understood that it wasn't about being the most powerful. It was about being the most perceptive, the most capable of understanding the complex and ever-changing dynamics of galactic existence. And as humanity continued to share its knowledge with these younger species, they, too, began to embrace the idea that true power lies not in conquering the stars, but in understanding them. In the end, humanity's legacy in the galaxy wasn't one of destruction or subjugation, but of intellectual mastery. The warships, once feared for their ability to dismantle entire fleets with a single scan, had become symbols of humanity's unparalleled capacity to adapt and innovate. And as the galaxy looked to the future, they knew one thing for certain. The greatest threat they faced wasn't just a powerful weapon or a formidable enemy, but the unrelenting, ever-watchful eyes of humanity's warships, scanning the stars, learning, and evolving, forever one step ahead. As humanity's influence continued to expand across the galaxy, their warships, symbols of both intelligence and adaptability, became central to the delicate balance of power. They were no longer just seen as harbingers of destruction, but as a very architect of an emerging era of diplomacy, trade, and intellectual exchange. While there were still those who viewed humanity's rise with suspicion and fear, the vast majority of the galaxy's civilizations had come to understand that engaging with humanity meant engaging with a species that had mastered the art of insight and foresight. Humanity's warships, with their relentless scanning capabilities, had unlocked a new paradigm in interstellar relations. War, once a default mode of resolving conflicts, became the last resort for most species. Instead, knowledge, negotiation, and strategic foresight had become the favored tools for maintaining peace or resolving disputes. Military engagements still occurred, but they were rare. Diplomatic ties had grown so strong, largely due to humanity's unmatched ability to analyze and predict, that war seemed increasingly unnecessary. After all, if you could predict the outcome of any conflict before it even began, why engage in it? One significant turning point came when an ancient and powerful race, the Verdar, whose vast empire had stood as a dominant force for millennia, decided to challenge humanity's growing presence in the galaxy. The Verdar were legendary for their mind-bending technology, capable of manipulating the fabric of space itself. They had once seen themselves as the ultimate authority, and they were not about to let a younger, less powerful species outshine them. The Verdar assembled a fleet that was believed to be unstoppable. They approached a key sector in human-controlled space with the intention of sending a forceful message to humanity that their rise would not go unchallenged. However, as a fleet entered the region, they discovered that the very thing they thought would give them an advantage, secrecy, was already compromised. Humanity's warships, quietly observing from afar, had already gathered a wealth of information on the Verdar's movements, technology, and tactics. It was as if the Verdar were walking into a trap, but they hadn't yet realized it. In a quiet but pivotal moment, a human commander, sitting aboard a heavily armored flagship, issued a simple order: scan. The ship's sensors hummed to life, casting a silent, all-encompassing net across the incoming Verdar fleet. Through those scans, humanity quickly pieced together a series of vulnerabilities in the Verdar's complex systems. It wasn't that the Verdar fleet was technologically inferior. It was that the intricacies of their designs had left them susceptible to a very specific countermeasure that humanity had developed, a weakness in their hyperdrive systems, previously undiscovered by the Verdar themselves, was exploited by humanity's scanning technology. Human warships didn't fire a single shot. They didn't need to. By the time the Verdar fleet entered the human-claimed system, it was already too late. The hyperdrives of their ships began to fail in rapid succession, one by one, paralyzing the fleet. The Verdar had no idea what had happened, until they realized, with growing horror, that it was their own weaknesses exposed by the very species they had sought to intimidate. The Verdar fleet, caught off guard and crippled, was forced to retreat without ever engaging in battle. The humiliating retreat shook the Verdar to their core, and the entire galaxy watched in awe. This encounter became another milestone in the galaxy's growing understanding of humanity's power, not in their firepower, but in their ability to see deeper, to anticipate and outthink opponents who had believed themselves invincible. The Verdar, once the epitome of technological supremacy, found themselves humbled by the knowledge-driven warfare humanity had perfected. This event echoed throughout the galaxy, cementing the idea that the true strength of a species lay not in their ability to destroy, but in their ability to comprehend, adapt, and evolve. The Verdar were not the only ones to reconsider their approach to humanity. Other races that had once viewed humanity with disdain now began to study their methods. Some even sent emissaries to learn from human commanders, hoping to understand how their scanning technologies could be used in non-combat contexts, such as interstellar exploration or even colonization. In a galaxy where power had always been defined by military strength or the ability to manipulate advanced technologies, humanity's victory through sheer intelligence was nothing short of revolutionary. Fortify their defenses, and to ensure their secrets remained concealed. While some species tried to establish trade deals with humanity or offer technological exchanges, it was clear that the fear of exposure still lingered. Many believed that the safest strategy was to keep their distance, pretending that humanity was just another ambitious species rather than a silent, ever-present observer capable of unraveling the galaxy's deepest secrets. As human warships continued to evolve, their scans became even more sophisticated, moving beyond simply detecting technological weaknesses or vulnerabilities. They began to analyze entire civilizations, studying social structures, historical trends, and psychological patterns. The human warships, with their evolving capabilities, became not just tools of war, but profound instruments of cosmic understanding. They could predict the rise and fall of entire empires, spot trends in galactic politics, and uncover the hidden motivations behind alien actions. It wasn't just that humanity had the most powerful warships in the galaxy, it was that they had the sharpest minds behind those warships. Every scan, every probe, every analysis revealed something new. And as humanity's warships continued to develop, so too did the respect they garnered throughout the galaxy. The fear of these warships wasn't limited to the battlefield. It extended into every facet of galactic life, from commerce to politics to the very way civilizations structured themselves. The reputation of human warships became so powerful that even those who tried to stand against humanity began to reconsider their strategies. The greatest empires, who had once thought they could control or outmaneuver human fleets, realized that it was impossible to truly challenge a species that could see and understand them on such a fundamental level. Human warships didn't just fight, they understood. They didn't just destroy, they learned. And in a galaxy full of vast, unpredictable forces, that was the most dangerous power of all. The story of why even the most powerful aliens stayed clear of human warship scans was no longer just a tale of military supremacy. It became a story of intellectual dominance, of a species that had mastered the art of observation and adaptation. As humanity's influence spread, so too did the myth of their warships, silent, calculating, and ever watchful. And in a universe that seemed infinite in its complexity, the one thing that every species now feared was the unblinking eyes of humanity's warship scans, for they were the true masters of the galaxy's unseen secrets. As humanity's presence continued to expand across the galaxy, the power of their warship scans began to shape not just individual encounters but entire galactic policies. In places where once there had been fierce resistance to human expansion, there were now quiet negotiations and covert alliances. Entire sectors of space that had once been closed to human exploration were now under subtle human influence, as other alien species began to realize that cooperating with humanity, albeit with caution, was the most prudent course of action. The fear and respect humanity commanded also transformed their role in galactic governance. Where once they were seen as newcomers, amateurs in sea of ancient and mighty empires, they were now invited to the galactic councils, not as equals in terms of military might, but as custodians of knowledge and guardians of intelligence. Their warship scans, and the deep understanding they gathered through these scans, made them invaluable members of these councils. They became the ones others turned to for advice on matters of galactic strategy, trade routes, and even peacekeeping efforts. Yet, despite their newfound diplomatic standing, humanity's warships remained a constant reminder of their military prowess. They were never far from the minds of alien leaders, even as they sat at the same tables. This quiet presence served as a reminder that while humanity was now a part of galactic diplomacy, they were never to be underestimated. Human warships were capable of turning any peaceful negotiation into a potential power play with a simple scan, revealing weaknesses in the opponent's positions or even exposing betrayals before they could be acted upon. It was during one such summit, known as the Conclave of the Great Accord, that humanity's reputation as both a military power and a diplomatic force was solidified. The conclave was intended to be a moment of reconciliation, where some of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful races would discuss terms for a new era of cooperation. Yet, as the talks unfolded, human warships remained on the periphery of the event, scanning the proceedings not only for security but for patterns in behavior and unspoken tensions. It was here, in the midst of high-level diplomacy, that the true scope of humanity's intelligence-gathering abilities became apparent. As discussions became more tense, subtle signs of discord began to emerge among the alien factions. Human warships, with their ability to analyze not only the technologies but also the psychological dynamics of the room, quickly pinpointed these subtle shifts in the tone of the gathering. Through their scans, they detected the unspoken alliances, the deep-rooted resentments, and potential for division among the parties that no one else had noticed. This intelligence allowed human diplomats to propose compromises and solutions that not only diffused the situation but also positioned humanity as a key mediator, the one species who truly understood the fragile web of galactic politics. This unprecedented influence in galactic affairs was a double-edged sword. While humanity was now seen as an indispensable force in maintaining peace, it also led to further alienation from certain factions. Some species, particularly those who had once been the pinnacle of galactic power, grew resentful of humanity's intelligence. They began to question if human influence in these councils was a sign of respect or a subtle form of dominance. Whispers of an intergalactic human agenda began to circulate, a belief that humanity, through its scans and its knowledge of every system, every fleet, and every alliance, was secretly engineering a new galactic order where their influence would reign supreme. But despite these rumors and growing mistrust from a few quarters, the galaxy's overwhelming majority came to understand the unique nature of humanity's rise. It wasn't just their warships, it was their relentless pursuit of knowledge. Humanity didn't seek to conquer or destroy in the conventional sense. Instead, they sought to understand, to learn, and to adapt, using their intelligence as their greatest weapon. Their warships, with their scans, were merely the tools through which that intelligence could be realized. As the years passed, the galaxy began to change in subtle yet profound ways. The old empires, those that had once been content to rely on their overwhelming military superiority, now began to invest in the same technologies that had made human warships so formidable. They were trying to understand how humanity had reached this point and were scrambling to replicate the methods that allowed human ships to learn, adapt, and predict. But no matter how much they tried to mirror humanity's advancements, they always seemed one step behind. The key to human success wasn't in simply building better ships or stronger weapons. It was in their deep commitment to understanding the universe, not as conquerors, but as curious learners. Warship scans was their capacity to predict the future. The scans didn't just measure the here and now. They could analyze an enemy's past engagements and extrapolate potential outcomes based on an infinite number of variables. This gave human commanders a nay-prescient understanding of what would happen if certain decisions were made in battle. In essence, they had mastered the art of predictive warfare. This ability allowed them to turn the tide of entire battles before they even began. The most formidable of galactic empires soon found that their attempts to conceal their movements and strategies had become meaningless. Humanity's warships, through their advanced scanning technology, could predict not just the next move, but the eventual outcome of entire campaigns. The idea of a surprise attack or a brilliant ambush was laughable in the face of such intelligence. In one particularly striking instance, a powerful alien empire, one with a history of conquering neighboring systems through sudden, devastating raids, found themselves confronted by a human fleet. The empire's leadership, accustomed to victory and never expecting to face a challenge, launched a series of well-planned strikes against human-held territories. They believed that their advanced stealth technologies and sudden assault tactics would leave humanity scrambling for defense. However, when the battle began, it became immediately clear that human warships were one step ahead. Human warships had already anticipated the Empire's movements based on previous engagements with similar species, and their scans allowed them to predict the path the Empire's fleets would take. The result was a series of counterattacks that overwhelmed the Empire's forces with startling efficiency. The alien fleet, despite its advanced technology, was outsmarted by the relentless intelligence of humanity's warship scans. The aliens quickly realized that no matter how sophisticated their own technology was, they could never hide from human eyes. As a result of these encounters, some of the most powerful empires began to alter their approach to humanity. They no longer viewed them as a species to be conquered or subdued. Instead, they saw them as a force to be understood. There was no more room for arrogance in the presence of human warships. Diplomatic relations became laced with an undercurrent of caution, as even the most elite alien races understood that any trade agreement, any alliance, could be monitored and assessed by human scanners. Over time, a new status quo emerged. The galactic community, for all its diversity and complexity, recognized that human warships were not just military assets. They were living embodiments of the future of warfare. Their ability to scan, adapt, and learn made them an irreplaceable force in the cosmos. As the human presence in the galaxy grew, so did their reputation as one of the most formidable powers, not through sheer numbers or firepower, but through their unmatched understanding of every enemy they faced. The ultimate realization that spread throughout the galaxy was that there was no escaping the reach of human warship scans. Whether through diplomacy, stealth, or brute force, every alien species came to understand one immutable truth. Even the most powerful aliens stay clear of human warship scans because to face them was to expose their very essence. And in a universe full of uncertainty and ever-shifting alliances, the one constant was that knowledge, especially when wielded by humanity's warships, was the most powerful weapon of all. As time went on, the presence of human warships began to cast a long shadow over the galaxy, not just in the realms of military might, but in the realms of interstellar diplomacy and economics as well. Alien species who had previously relied on their advanced fleets, vast trade networks, or political influence suddenly found themselves re-evaluating their positions. The old balance of power had shifted. No longer could an empire rely solely on its firepower or cunning to secure its place in the galaxy. Now, they had to contend with the unparalleled intelligence-gathering capabilities of human warships. The reputation of humanity's scanning technology became so ingrained in galactic culture that it began to shape entire civilizations' policies and strategies. Some alien species, faced with the inevitability of being scanned by human warships, began to alter their technological development. They turned inward, focusing on creating technologies that could counteract or hide from these scans, but each attempt met with limited success. Human warships had an uncanny ability to learn and adapt, their scans evolving with each new threat and each new encounter. A growing underground market emerged, dedicated to countering human scanning technologies. Alien engineers and scientists began to offer their services to those who wished to shield their ships from the probing eyes of humanity's warships. But these efforts, while occasionally successful in the short term, never truly eradicated the threat. The ingenuity behind human scanning technology was too versatile, too dynamic, to be completely outmatched. Any shield or countermeasure that could block one type of scan would quickly be bypassed by the next innovation, and the cycle would continue. Perhaps most chilling of all was the realization that humanity's warships were not merely limited to combat situations. Their scans were now an integral part of galactic intelligence, gathering data on everything from trade routes to political alliances to deep space anomalies. No matter how far an alien civilization tried to hide, humanity's warships were always out there, quietly observing, learning, and preparing. This created an underlying tension across the galaxy, a constant, simmering fear that no matter how secure a species felt in their domain, humanity could always find a way to uncover their secrets. In one particularly dramatic case, a once invincible alien empire found themselves faced with the undeniable truth that their entire economic and military system was built upon a fragile foundation. Humanity scans had revealed hidden vulnerabilities within the empire's vast trade network, flaws in their supply chains that could be exploited in times of war. What once seemed like a bastion of strength turned out to be a house of cards, and soon, smaller, less powerful factions began to exploit these weaknesses. The Empire's stranglehold on trade began to loosen, and their influence in galactic politics began to erode. In the midst of this upheaval, many of the galaxy's older powers began to call for peace talks with humanity, no longer viewing them as a species be overthrown, but one whose intelligence could no longer be ignored. These negotiations were often tense, filled with a mix of caution and begrudging respect. One such peace summit became known throughout the galaxy as the Great Scan, where the most powerful alien species gathered with human representatives to discuss a new galactic order. What was most remarkable about this summit wasn't just the peaceful discussions that followed, but the fact that it was largely conducted under the watchful eyes of human warships, their scans quietly weaving through the conversation, analyzing every word, every gesture, every subtext. Despite their respect for humanity's ingenuity, many species still sought to avoid direct conflict with human fleets. The mere presence of a human warship in a system could send entire fleets scrambling, not for battle, but to cover their vulnerabilities. 2. Knowledge itself could be the deadliest weapon. What further unnerved the alien powers was humanity's versatility. Where most species relied on rigid, centralized designs for their warships, human ships were highly modular. The scans they emitted were adaptable, flexible, and dynamic, just like their designs. Every encounter with a human fleet gave them a new understanding of alien weaknesses, allowing humanity to refine their technology in real time. With each scan, the warships of humanity grew smarter, more capable, and more dangerous. Other species had to be increasingly cautious, not just about the power of humanity's weapons, but about the insidious nature of their intelligence gathering. Humanity's warships didn't just expose weaknesses in enemy technology. They also subtly learned how to predict enemy behavior. The scans were capable of not just analyzing a ship's design, but also interpreting how that design would function in different combat scenarios. This gave human warships an unparalleled ability to adapt, countering even the most seasoned and experienced military minds. A race with decades or even centuries of combat experience could find itself outmatched by a human fleet that understood its tactics before it even fired its first shot. One particularly striking example of this came when humanity faced a massive galactic warlord known for his brutal strategies and invincible armadas. He had conquered countless systems, annihilating any who stood against him. But when a human fleet encountered his armada, the warlord's confidence quickly faltered. The scans from the human warships, which had initially been dismissed as ineffective, revealed critical flaws in his strategic patterns. Through an analysis of the warlord's previous battles and a careful study of his fleet's movements, human warships were able to predict and neutralize his tactics with surprising precision. The warlord's fleet, once seen as an unstoppable force, was rendered impotent by the very intelligence that humanity had learned to wield. The scans didn't just expose weak spots in the enemy's technology. They identified the patterns in how the warlord ships moved, how they fought, and how they reacted to various threats. Within hours, the entire armada was disbanded, with many of its ships retreating in fear or surrendering without a single shot being fired. Such event became increasingly common as humanity's warships, armed with their unyielding scans, began to challenge and, in some cases, topple galactic powers thought to be beyond reproach. The once overconfident alien species now had to contend with an entirely new breed of warfare, one where even their mightiest fleets were not invulnerable. The real threat was not in humanity's weapons, but in their ability to see into the heart of any enemy they faced. Over time, humanity's reputation continued to spread across the galaxy. Their warships became symbols of quiet, unrelenting power, an embodiment of the idea that knowledge and adaptability could overcome even the greatest might. And as more and more alien species realized the true extent of humanity's scanning technology, they began to avoid confrontation at all costs, preferring diplomacy and negotiation over the risk of facing a human warship. Even those alien species who once scoffed at humanity's early days now saw them in a different light. The scans emitted by human warships had evolved beyond anything anyone could have predicted. No longer were they just weapons of war. They were symbols of an unstoppable force of intelligence. A species that had once been seen as primitive and inexperienced now stood as one of the most formidable powers in the galaxy, an entity that could unravel the most intricate technologies, predict the most complicated tactics, and expose every secret an enemy might try to hide. In the end, the story of why even the most powerful aliens stay clear of human warship scans wasn't just about fear, it was about respect. Respect for the ingenuity, the adaptability, and the unyielding drive of humanity. For in the vast, cold reaches of space, it was not the size of a fleet that mattered most. It was the depth of knowledge one could wield against their foes. And when it came to scans, no one did it better than humanity. As the legend of humanity's warship spread across the galaxy, their reputation shifted from one of mere power to that of a sophisticated and almost inscrutable force. Even alien races with advanced intelligence, those who had mastered the arts of encryption and stealth, found themselves caught off guard by the adaptability of human warships. While other civilizations relied on brute strength or intricate cloaking technologies to hide their secrets, humanity's warships used information as their greatest weapon, and their scans were the key to unlocking it all. By this point, many species realized that simply avoiding human ships was no longer enough. The more cunning races, those that prided themselves on their own technological prowess, began to study the methods behind humanity's seemingly invincible scanning technology. They tried to replicate the technology, to create similar systems for their own fleets, but every attempt to mimic humanity's scans fell short. It wasn't just about the technology, it was about the philosophy behind it. Human engineers were not content with simply building powerful ships. They built warships that understood their environment, that learned and adapted as a battle unfolded. This dynamic approach to warfare was a stark contrast to the more static, predictable strategies of other species. Some alien races tried to use diplomacy to address the growing concern. They attempted to offer trade, alliances, and even knowledge exchanges in the hopes of averting open conflict with humanity's fleets. However, this often had the opposite effect. Alien diplomats quickly learned that the true value of such exchanges, when it came to humanity, was not just in shared knowledge but in what could be gleaned from their own technology. No matter how diplomatic the encounter seemed, humanity's warships were always scanning, always seeking the hidden strengths and weaknesses of every technological advancement offered. For example, in one memorable instance, a coalition of highly advanced alien species gathered to present a new form of propulsion technology to humanity, hoping to gain favor in the galactic community. However, as the humans quietly analyzed the technology through their scans, they discovered subtle flaws that the alien coalition had either ignored or been unaware of. Within days, humanity had created their own version of the propulsion system, improving on it in ways that the original designers had not considered. This not only bolstered humanity's own fleet, but demonstrated to the galaxy that their technological advantage was more than just raw firepower. It was in their ability to understand and enhance the systems of others. As humanity's warships continued to evolve, they became even more than just a symbol of strength. They became the pinnacle of what could be achieved through relentless curiosity and intellectual resilience. Other species came to fear the moment when a human warship would enter their territory, not because of the threat of annihilation, but because of the threat of exposure. Every scan sent out by these ships was a potential revelation of untapped vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and strategies. No alien force, no matter how powerful, was beyond the reach of these scans. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of humanity's